So hello and welcome to my channel. This is the first video on the channel actually, and today I thought I'm gonna be going through my psychedelic record collection. So psychedelic music is one of my favorite genres, maybe my favorite genre. I'm not really sure, but I really like it, and I love psychedelic music on a pretty large spectrum, so from pretty calm music to harder hitting stuff, and yeah, you'll see sort of what my favorite pieces of the genre is throughout these records. When discussing a music genre, there's always going to be discussion if this record belongs to the genre or if it doesn't. But this is my video, so I get to choose the rules. If you not disagree, but if you have some thoughts about the records I chose to include, post them down in the comment section below. But with that said, I think we can get started into the fun part of the video, me showing you the record. So let's get into it. So these are not going to be in any particular order, or actually what I think the order will actually a reverse alphabetical order, because I just pulled these from my collection alphabetically. And then the last record got first in the stack, so to say. But let's get started. The first record is the West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band Volume 3. So this is their third record, or their fourth record, sorry if I'm not wrong. Despite the name Volume 3, they actually did release a first record, like separate from the series 1, 2, 3. This is the only record by the band I have. Is this my favorite record of the band? I'm not sure. It's a very good record, but I think Volume 1 and 2 also are very solid records. The style of this is sort of pop psych, and actually the band leader, I always said Bob Marley, but if I'm not mistaken, Bob Markley is his last name. He was a bit of a weird guy, and I don't stand behind any of his actions. It's a bit disputed what he did and who he was, but it's a very, very good record. So that's the first one. The second record, Vanilla Fudge, self-titled, released on Atco. I actually got this from my grandmother. I'm not a super big fan of this record. It's a solid psych record. I believe this was released pretty early. I'm not really sure what year, but it has some famous covers, like Ticket to Ride by the Beatles, She's Not There by the Zombies, and Rigby. So those are songs that are maybe not, it's not the classic Bob Dylan covers that are prominent in a lot of the psych bands. Andy Warhol, Velvet Underground and Nico, the Banana album. Such a good album. Is this psych? Some people probably wouldn't say so. Maybe more art rock, maybe. I think it has some pretty psychedelic songs on it. It's one of my favorite records, and if you don't got this, definitely pick it up. My favorite songs on this album is probably All Tomorrow's Parties. Really like Nico's voice on that, dark, scary, haunting, and that can pretty much be said for all of this record. It's a very good one, which all of you have probably heard of or at least seen. Next up, Santana, self-titled, and their first record. Also got this from my grandmother. Such a good album. What I'm looking to get is a live Santana album. I think that would be a nice addition to the collection. But for now, this will do. It sort of feels like a psychedelic freakout, and that's what I like. Next up is a compilation by the Rolling Stones, Flowers. This has a lot of songs on it from, I believe, her Satanic Majesty's Quest So it has a lot of good songs like Ruby Tuesday, Have You Seen a Mother, Baby, Standing in Shadow, Let's Spend the Night Together, Late Jane, Out of Time, My Girl. So it has some psychedelic record or psychedelic songs, some more poppy, but definitely a compilation to get. I do also have her Satanic Fantasies request. That will probably be later in this video or in a part 2, but at the moment it's on the shelf above me, so those records are not included in this stack. Next up is a record that is not very psychedelic. It's Quicksilver Messenger Service. Or maybe at this point they were only called Quicksilver, but this record is called What About Me? The reason I decided to show this is because I really like their first records, but I haven't gotten them just yet. But for now, this is everything I got by the Quicksilver Messenger Service. I don't really like this record. It's a decent record, but not really my style. Next up is Procol Harum, A Whiter Shade of Pale. I'm pretty sure this is their first record. Has some great songs on it. The title track, A Whiter Shade of Pale. But my favorite song on this record is probably She Wandered Through the Garden Fence. The next records we're gonna get into is Pink Floyd, and I'm just gonna sort of group these together. I decided to pick out 3 records, and these are the records that I think probably are the most psychedelic ones. So first off, we got Piper at the Gates of Dawn. This is probably my favorite Pink Floyd records, and it's also probably in my top 10 psychedelic records, maybe even top 5. Such a good record. Second one is A Saucer Full of Secrets. I don't think this is as good as Piper, but it's still a solid record. And the third record by Pink Floyd is Relics, which is a compilation. What I like about this is that it has some of the psychedelic singles released very early in their career, like Arnold Lane and C. Emily Clay. Next up is the Moody Blues, In Search of the Lost Chord. Decent record, don't really have much to say about this, but a solid psychedelic record. The Green Tambourine, Pop Psych, released on Butter Records, by the Lemon Pipers. If you haven't heard this and you like the zombies, maybe check this out. My favorite track on this is probably Rainbow Tree. It's a solid poppy psych record. Next one is the Kinks, the Village Green Preservation Society. I don't really see why this is classed as a psychedelic record, but it is by many, so that's why I decided to include this. Even if I don't really think it's a psychedelic record, I think it's an amazing record. The American Metaphysical Circus by Joe Bird and the Field Hippies. This is a very interesting record. Joe Bird, I believe, was a part of the United States, you know, the black album cover with like the circle, which came in a paper bag, and this has some sort of features of that record on this one. But this record, why I said it was interesting, is because it's like really like a long trip, and you basically get everything from hard heavy psych to classical to like comedic bits and ambient music, and yeah. So if you don't really know what kind of mood you're in, put this on and I'm sure you'll figure it out. Next up is another sort of series of albums, and this series is by my favorite band. Not my favorite artist, but my favorite band, and that is Jefferson Airplane. So these are probably their most psychedelic records, and they're all a bit different, but I all love them a lot. So we're just gonna go in chronological order here. First off, Surrealistic Pillow, their most famous record. for a reason. It's a very good record, has a lot of great songs. Somebody to Love, White Rabbit are like some of the psychedelic songs that have sort of transcended the genre and become famous all over the world by all sort of people. Second of their follow-up, After Bathing at Baxter's. This is pretty different compared to Surrealistic Pillow. So a lot of people, when this was released, I believe they were a bit confused because it didn't sound at all like Surrealistic Pillow. This is a lot freakier, weirder, and all that good stuff. And then my favorite of these three, maybe my favorite Airplane record of all, which is Crown of Creation. This has so many good songs and I just love it. My favorite song is probably Ladder. I also like the song about a threesome, Triad. Such a good rendition of that song. You also got Share a Little Joke, amazing song. In Time. Yeah, a lot of great songs, so definitely check this out. Next up, Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin, Cheap Thrills. What a record. Really sort of rough, not very polished, but that adds a lot to this one. Definitely a amazing one. Let's get on to the Grateful Dead. I actually got a Grateful Dead shirt on now. That was not planned, but we got Anthem of the Sun by the Grateful Dead. Definitely the most psychedelic record. Their other records aren't really psychedelic, they're more sort of like hippie rock, but this one is definitely psychedelic. So if you're into psychedelic music, haven't really found what you're looking for in the other Dead records, definitely check this one out. Next up is The Doors, their self-titled one. This was a very influential record at the time, led to Elektra picking up a lot of other artists. This is very dark, haunting, very moody, and yeah, definitely a great one. If you haven't got this, prioritize it as one of the first psychedelic records to pick up. Next up, we got another dark record, and it's by the band Coven. Witchcraft Destroys Minds and Reaps Souls is what I think it's called. How I like to describe this is like a satanic Jefferson Airplane. The first side, like 10 out of 10. The second side, yeah, check it out and you'll see what I mean. It's pretty dark, pretty scary, but it's a fun record to put on. Next up, we got a record by Country Joe and the Fish. Here we are again. This is not a very psychedelic record, but it's the only one I got by Country Joe and the Fish. But I do want to pick up some of their earlier stuff, which is a lot more psychedelic. Trip Through Hell by the CA Quintet. This is sort of a jazzy psychedelic record. I'm pretty sure it's all instrumental. The originals of this are really expensive, so get a reissue if you can, which I have. But yeah, a nice one. So let's get out of the dark mood that we sort of set with the Doors, Coven and CA Quintet, and let's get on to something a bit more easier to digest. The Byrds Greatest Hits. This is the only Byrds record I got at the moment. Of course I want to get the real albums, but this has a lot of good songs, which is sort of defining of the Californian psychedelic movement. The Byrds, what a band, folk rock with some psychedelic tinges, I guess you could call them. Bob Dylan, this is not a psychedelic record. Why I decided to include this is because I got this book, which is called Psychedelia by Richard Morton Jack. This is sort of excerpts from the Endless Trips books, which is a book that I really want to get. I don't have it, but this includes 101 psychedelic records. So, and in this book, Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan is included. I don't really know why. I don't think it's a very psychedelic record, but it's included, and that's why I decided to include this in my showcase or in my collection. I do need to add that I think Blonde on Blonde is my favorite Dylan record. So yeah, let's get into the Beatles. I decided to include two. I will add another record a bit later on, but at the moment it's up. Maybe you can see it, it's right there. But I'll touch on that when we get to those records. But the two records I'm going to showcase now is Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's. Yeah, this is some good stuff. Revolver is probably my favorite out of these two, one of my favorite Beatles records of all. I think the White Album is probably my favorite, but just want to add, this is actually a UK original stereo, not a mono, but a stereo, so yeah. And now we got the Beach Boys. I decided to showcase Pet Sounds. You've all probably heard about this. Amazing record, not super psychedelic, but a bit. It's sort of part of the psychedelic canon. It's important in that, so I decided to include it. And the second one is Smiley Smile by the Beach Boys. This was of course not the intended outcome of the album. You probably heard about the Brian Wilson story. If not, check it out, but I still think this is a good product. Here we got the Magical Mystery Tour. This is a compilation album of a lot of the singles. I believe some of the songs are made for this movie, but there are also a lot of singles on it. But maybe the most psychedelic collection of any Beatles songs there is. Definitely a good one. Or Her Satanic Majesty's Request by the Rolling Stones. Some find this album a bit tacky. I definitely don't agree. I think it's a very good psychedelic record and definitely worth checking out. Jimi Hendrix, the only Hendrix record I got at the moment. And this is Access Bolus Love. A great showcase of Hendrix's skills in a psychedelic package. Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies. What record? Probably or maybe the best psychedelic pop record ever recorded. Yeah, so this was actually like their last hooray. They didn't sell a lot before this. I'm not sure how this one sold, but this was sort of them getting to do whatever they wanted for their last effort, and what the product it turned out to be. Gandalf, a record that didn't really get a lot of love when it was released. They hail as a psychedelic classic, and it's such a good song. Golden Earrings. Yeah, this has a lot of great songs on it, so definitely check it out. The 13th Floor Elevators. This is more sort of garagey psych, that end of the spectrum. And the garagey side of it is not my favorite part of psychedelic music, but I think this is definitely one of the best records on that side. If you don't really know what you think about the garagey side, or if you love it, this compilation is one that you need to get. Nuggets, original artifacts from the first psychedelic era, between 65 and 68, and that era was like the garage rock era. So this is a 2 LP set with, I believe it's mostly singles, some which are pretty well known and some which aren't. So that was all of the psychedelic records that I had, and this is of course like a collection that is constantly growing. I've been collecting for like 2 years, and this is what I've managed to amass so far, but there are so many more records I want to get, and I wanted to end this video with asking you to post or to comment your favorite psychedelic record, and maybe I've heard it, maybe I haven't, and if I haven't, I'll be sure to check it out. But yeah, that was everything that I had, and I'll see you in the next video.